The San Antonio Spurs just shocked the world. Down 2-0 on the road in the loudest building in basketball, they walked into Madison Square Garden and walked out with a 115-111 win. Victor Wembanyama dropped 32 points, Stephon Castle hit a dagger 3 in the final minute, and the Knicks' 13-game playoff win streak? Gone. Done. Over. But here's what people are sleeping on tonight. Donald Trump showed up. The sitting president of the United States attended his first ever NBA Finals game in history, and the second his face hit that jumbotron, 20,000 New Yorkers booed him out of the building. Then the Knicks lost. Now the internet is on fire. Fans are blaming Trump. Others are pointing at James Dolan for inviting him. Trump curse was trending within 20 minutes of the buzzer. We are getting into all of it. The Knicks coach went off on the refs over a free throw gap that is hard to explain, and there is a real conversation to have about whether New York has been playing too dirty this series. This finals has been building towards something big, but tonight felt like a turning point. Wembanyama's masterclass, Castle's coming out party, the Trump chaos, the ref controversy. Let's break it all down. It's just genuinely hard to explain how one team gets 24 free throw attempts in the second half to another team's 8. Let's be clear, the Spurs didn't get lucky. The numbers prove it. Wembanyama finished with 32 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks. Castle had 23 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Those two became the first pair of players 22 or younger in NBA history to both score 22 or more in the same finals game, ever, on the road, at MSG, with their season on the line. The Spurs shot 24 free throws in the second half. The Knicks shot 8. Coach Mike Brown walked into that post-game presser and basically torched the officiating crew. He chose his words carefully, but the message was loud and clear. Donald Trump sat in Dolan's private suite wearing a dark suit, hand over his heart during the anthem, and got booed louder than almost any figure in MSG history. His granddaughter, Kai Trump, and several cabinet members were with him. The Knicks lost for the first time since April 23rd. The series is now 2-1 Knicks, but this is a real series now. Game 4 on Wednesday could flip everything. I never expected to be in the NBA Finals and watch one team get 24 free throw attempts in the second half to another team's 8. To understand why tonight hit so hard, you need to know what was at stake. The Knicks had not lost a playoff game since April 23rd. 13 straight wins, second longest in NBA playoff history. The city was already planning the parade. Fans lined up outside MSG hours before tip-off. This was the first NBA Finals game at Madison Square Garden in 27 years. The last time? 1999, when the Spurs beat the Knicks in 5 games. So this rematch carried layers of history on top of history. Then word dropped that Trump was coming, and the reaction was not kind. The security required for a sitting president forced the cancellation of a massive watch party right outside the arena. Thousands of fans got shut down before tip. Ticket holders were told to arrive 2 hours early. The night was already disrupted before the ball even went up. Then the national anthem happened. Trump appeared on the jumbotron. The boos were instant, loud, and unified. 20,000 people sounding like one voice. Seconds later, the camera cut to Jalen Brunson on the court. Those same boos flipped into the loudest cheers you've ever heard. That contrast said everything about this city right now. The Spurs came in with a clear mindset. De'Aaron Fox had said publicly they needed to show resilience, and from the opening tip, that resilience was real. They weren't scared. They had structure, composure, and a game plan. The Knicks played their usual style. Physical, grinding, aggressive, but the Spurs had watched the film. Every time the Knicks tried to muscle up on Wembanyama, he absorbed the contact and hunted the call. Every time Castle drove and felt pressure, he finished or drew the foul. San Antonio turned New York's aggression into free throws, and by the second half, it was breaking the Knicks wide open. The first half was tight, both teams trading punches. The crowd was electric, Brunson was making shots, Cat was active on the glass. It felt like two evenly matched teams waiting for someone to blink. In the second half, the Spurs decided it wasn't going to be them. They fouled too. I mean, we were committing fouls too, but I never expected to be here and see such a large disparity. Let's talk about Victor Wembanyama, because this performance is going to be talked about for a very long time. 32 points is the headline, but how he got there tells a deeper story. Early on, the Knicks doubled him, took away his first option, and made the role players beat them. For stretches in the first half, that plan worked. Wembanyama was quiet, patient, letting the game come to him. Then the fourth quarter hit. 13 of his 32 points came in the final frame. He was out-dueling Jalen Brunson, a guy built for big playoff moments, in the most pressure-packed stretch of the entire NBA season. The highlight of the night? Fourth quarter, Wembanyama catches on the wing, pump fakes Brunson completely off his feet, absorbs contact on the way up, hits the mid-range jumper, and draws the foul. And one. The building went dead silent. The kind of silence that only happens when 20,000 people all have the exact same thought at the exact same time. That thought? We are watching something we have never seen before. He also threw down a transition dunk in the fourth that sent the Spurs bench into absolute chaos. Not just 2 points, a statement, a message. This team is not going home tonight. From every angle, across every possession, Wembanyama was showing things on the basketball court that simply do not exist at his size. 7'4", a wingspan that covers more ground than most wings cover by moving their whole body. He can post up, step to the perimeter, hit pull-up jumpers, facilitate off the dribble, and defend every position on the floor. He is not just a generational talent, he is a brand new category of basketball player. And tonight, on the biggest stage in the sport, at 22 years old in his first finals, he made that case as loudly as anyone ever could. We just didn't execute in the fourth quarter. It wasn't about the officiating. We had our chances and we didn't take them. Now let's talk about Stephon Castle, because while Wembanyama was the headliner, Castle refused to be overshadowed. 23 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. But the stat line doesn't capture what made tonight so special. Castle played at UConn. He has been to MSG before. He has felt that crowd. And from the opening possession, his body language said it all. He was not nervous, he was not pressing. He was just playing basketball. The defining moment of his night came in the final minute. The Knicks were clawing back. OG Anunoby just knocked down a 3 to cut it to 2. MSG found one more gear and genuinely believed a miracle was coming. Timeout, Spurs, ball to Castle. 6.8 seconds on the clock, Brunson fouls him, and Castle, in the most pressure-packed free throw situation of his young career, hits the first one, then the second one. 4-point game, ball game. He walked back on defense like he had done it 1,000 times. That is not arrogance, that is preparation. Wembanyama ran over to him after, and that moment those two shared in the middle of Madison Square Garden felt like the start of something that is going to define this league for the next decade. Now the ref situation, because this is where things get genuinely complicated. Mike Brown's postgame comments were measured but pointed. 24-8 in the second half of an NBA Finals game is not a minor gap. It is a game-changing number. When one team goes to the line 3 times as often as the other in a close Finals game, the outcome almost always reflects that. And it did. The Spurs won by 4. But to be fair, the Knicks have been physical all series. This is not new. Mike Brown built this team to use contact as a weapon. They were getting away with that physicality in games 1 and 2 without nearly the same whistle volume. So the complaint is not really about fouls being called. It is that the standard shifted. There is also a bigger picture here. One of the referees on tonight's crew worked one of the most disputed games in the Western Conference Finals between San Antonio and Oklahoma City, a game where the Spurs were called for significantly more fouls than OKC. Spurs fans were already frustrated before tip-off. Coach Mitch Johnson had his own officiating run-in earlier this postseason. This narrative has been building across multiple series, and now that Brown has gone on record with a specific number in a public setting, the refs will be under a microscope for Game 4. The foul story is not black and white though. Wembanyama is 7'4". When a player that large absorbs contact and goes to the floor, it looks different from any other player in the league. Referees are human beings reacting to what they see. That is not a conspiracy, that is physics. At the same time, the Knicks were genuinely fouling. Cat was grabbing, Brunson was reaching. Defenders were holding jerseys trying to slow down Castle and Fox. Watch the film without a rooting interest and you will find real fouls, but also moments that could have been balanced out. In a 4-point game, those moments matter enormously. Karl Anthony Towns wasn't interested in blaming the officials. He pointed directly at the Knicks' own mistakes. Now let's walk through the fourth quarter, because this ending was as dramatic as anything you'll see in a playoff series. Going into the fourth, it was still a tight game. Multiple lead changes, both teams making shots. Brunson was hitting tough pull-ups. Anunoby was competing on both ends. The energy inside MSG was the kind that makes you understand why people call it the greatest arena in the world. But every time New York made a run, the Spurs had an answer. Fox was ice cold in crunch time. Smart reads, no turnovers, keeping the offense flowing without forcing. Wembanyama was going to the line and converting. Castle was making mid-range shots and knocking down threes. The Spurs were not panicking, they were executing. With about 30 seconds left, Brunson hit a three to cut it to 3. The crowd found one more gear. Then Fox sealed it with a 2-point jumper. Castle knocked down 2 free throws after a Brunson foul with seconds left. Final, Spurs 115, Knicks 111. The 13-game winning streak, second longest in NBA playoff history, ended right there at Madison Square Garden. The first loss since April 23rd. The first time all playoffs that New York looked truly beatable. Now, the Trump situation one more time, because the internet is still burning and it deserves a real breakdown. Here are the facts. Trump attended as James Dolan's guest. He became the first sitting president to ever attend an NBA Finals game. His presence required enhanced security that directly caused the cancellation of a fan watch party outside MSG. Thousands of fans had planned to be there. They got shut down before tip. Ticket holders were told to arrive at least 2 hours early. The game was already disrupted before it started. When Trump appeared on the Jumbotron during the national anthem, the boos were immediate, sustained, and massive. This was not a section of fans, this was a 20,000-seat arena. In 2024, Trump received fewer than 839,000 votes in New York City, compared to over 1.9 million for the Democratic nominee. A warm reception was never coming. But the Knicks lost, and that's when the internet completely lost its mind. Trump curse was trending within 20 minutes of the buzzer. Former players were posting laughing emojis. The anger directed at James Dolan, who was already not loved in New York, got significantly louder overnight. People want to know why, of all games, Dolan chose to bring this particular guest when his team hadn't lost in 6 weeks. Obviously, Trump being in the suite didn't cause Wembanyama to score 32 points. Nobody actually believes that. The Spurs won because they were the better team for 48 minutes. But the timing is irresistible. The symbolism is undeniable. And the NBA gives us permission to talk about all of it at the same time. This is the beauty and the chaos of sports at the highest level. It never stays just about basketball. The real question heading into Game 4 is whether Dolan invites him back, because if he does and the Knicks lose again, the reaction inside that building will be unlike anything we've seen this series. Here's where the series actually stands. The Knicks still lead 2-1. They still have home court. A winning Game 4 puts them 1 game away from ending a 53-year championship drought. But the Spurs showed tonight they are not going quietly. Wembanyama in the fourth quarter is a completely different problem than anything the Knicks faced in earlier rounds. The Hawks, Bulls, Cavaliers, none of them had a player who can do what he does. None of those series prepared New York for a 7'4" superstar who can dominate inside, step out to the perimeter, and draw fouls at will. For the Knicks to win Game 4, 3 things have to change. 1, the foul rate in the second half. They cannot keep sending Wembanyama and Castle to the line in crunch time and expect to win close games. 2, Brunson needs to be great. Not good, great. Because good isn't enough when the other team has a 32-point monster. 3, Mike Brown needs a new wrinkle, something the Spurs haven't seen on film. What the Knicks ran defensively in the second half of Game 3 didn't work. Run it again in Game 4 and you'll get the same result. For the Spurs to even the series at 2-2, their young core needs to deliver again on the road. Fox needs to keep being the steady veteran voice that holds the offense together in crunch time, and they need to keep attacking aggressively because with the officiating under a microscope after Brown's comments, the refs will feel pressure to call it straight. The Spurs would be smart to make that as hard to ignore as possible. Here's the bigger picture. This series is historic on multiple levels. Knicks versus Spurs, a rematch of 1999 when San Antonio beat New York in 5.
Tonight was the first finals game at MSG in 27 years. The Knicks are chasing their first title since 1973. The Spurs are chasing theirs since 2014. And right in the middle of it all, two 22-year-olds just wrote their names into the record books together. The Spurs came back from the brink against Oklahoma City in 7 games in the Western Conference Finals. They know how to fight through adversity.
Tonight was not their first must-win situation this postseason, and they delivered. What happens Wednesday tells us everything. A Knicks win, and this series is basically over. A Spurs win, and we have a real fight on our hands that could go all the way to 7. The energy, the stakes, the drama, this finals has everything. And the fact that the President of the United States is sitting courtside while all of it unfolds makes it feel completely surreal. So here is where we stand. Spurs win Game 3, 115 to 111. Wembanyama with 32, Castle with 23. History made by the youngest scoring duo in finals history. The Knicks lose for the first time since April. Coach Brown blasts the officiating over a 24-8 second-half free throw gap. Trump gets booed out of MSG, and the 13-game win streak is over. Game 4 is going to be the most important basketball game played in New York City in a generation. I think Brunson comes out with something to prove, and the Knicks make it competitive start to finish. But do not sleep on the Spurs making it 2-2. They just proved they can win in this building. What do you think happens Wednesday? Knicks go up 3-1, or do the Spurs flip this whole series upside down? Drop your prediction in the comments right now. Subscribe if you haven't. We are covering every game of this series, and it is only getting better. See you Wednesday for Game 4. Before we close, though, there's one more layer that isn't getting enough attention, and it's the most important thread heading forward. The Knicks built their entire identity this postseason on being the tougher team. They ground out the Hawks, they wore down the Bulls, they swept the Cavaliers because their physicality was simply too much for anyone in the East to handle. Mike Brown had his team playing with a chip on their shoulder every single night. But the Spurs just cracked that formula. When you play that physically against a 7'4" superstar who knows exactly how to draw fouls, and against a coaching staff smart enough to weaponize the free throw line, the strategy that won you 13 straight games can become your biggest weakness. The Knicks have to figure out how to be physical without being reckless. They have to make Wembanyama uncomfortable without putting him on the line every 3 possessions. That is genuinely one of the hardest defensive assignments in the history of this sport. This is a chess match now. Brown knows the Spurs will attack the foul narrative. Johnson knows Brown will push his players towards smarter defense. Both coaches come into Game 4 with adjustments. Both stars come in with something to prove. And the winner of Game 4 almost certainly wins this series. Think about the historical parallel for a second. In 1999, Tim Duncan's Spurs came in as a dominant force. The Knicks were the scrappy, physical underdog, and they pushed it to 5 games. Now it's completely flipped. The Knicks are the established power. The Spurs are the young, talented underdog that everyone is suddenly taking very seriously. History rhymes in this league, and this series is no different. One last thing. De'Aaron Fox didn't jump off the box score tonight, but his performance deserves real recognition. He was the steadiest player on the floor in crunch time. He didn't turn it over when the game was on the line. He made smart, simple decisions when the Knicks were pressing. He buried the 2-point jumper with 12 seconds left to push it to 5 and basically seal the win. Fox brought his playoff experience into this building, and it showed. Wembanyama and Castle get the headlines, and they earned every word. But Fox is the reason the Spurs didn't collapse down the stretch like they did in Game 2. And don't sleep on Julian Champagnie either. He hit the first 6 points of the second half, absorbed a Brunson flagrant, and knocked down the 3 anyway. He is not a household name nationally, but he is a player who can hurt you, and the Knicks cannot leave him open if they want to slow down Wembanyama at the same time. This series has everything. Youth versus experience, history versus destiny, an alien versus a city that has been waiting 53 years. And somehow, in the middle of all of it, the sitting president of the United States is watching his hometown team lose while 20,000 people boo his face on a jumbotron. You genuinely could not write this.